Makoto's life takes a wild turn when he discovers that his parents aren't originally from Japan. They're from another world. They made a deal with the goddess to save themselves, but the catch was that they promised their most precious possession in return. Turns out, that precious possession is none other than Makoto himself. Faced with the choice of either fulfilling the contract or having one of his sisters taken instead, he begrudgingly agrees to go. As a parting gift, Tsukuyomi, the moon god, gives him all the power he can muster for Makoto's new adventure and even throws in the highly practical favour of wiping his browser history clean. Makoto gets launched into his new world, but Tsukuyomi warns him that the goddess waiting for him isn't exactly the most pleasant, and sure enough, when Makoto finally meets her, she's not impressed. In fact, she's horrified by his appearance, calling him far too ugly to be the hero of her world. She's already found a better looking candidate and decides to toss Makoto to the farthest reaches of the world, dumping him with the low-level creatures. As a consolation, she gives him one ability: to understand every language. Except human, of course, because why make life easy? After getting kicked to the curb, Makoto crosses paths with Tsukuyomi once again, who breaks the news that since he's no longer needed as a hero, he's free to do whatever he pleases. On the bright side, Tsukuyomi grants him even more power, noting that his rough life back in the real world earned him a little extra boost. With that, Tsukuyomi disappears, leaving Makoto to fall from the sky and land in a lifeless wasteland. For 3 days, Makoto wanders alone through the desolate place, feeling increasingly lonely and down on his luck. Just when things seem hopeless, he suddenly hears a girl's voice in the distance, calling for help. Looks like things are finally about to get interesting. He hears a cry for help and rushes towards the sound, only to stumble upon a pig-like creature being attacked by a two-headed monster. Without hesitation, he charges full speed at the beast and, to his surprise, takes it down with one powerful leap, beheading it in the process. Makoto is stunned by his own strength, but the girl, who turns out to be a pig-like creature, is absolutely terrified. She tries to flee, but Makoto quickly stops her and introduces himself. While she's shocked that a human can understand her language, Makoto is even more confused that he's casually talking to a pig. Despite the strangeness, he tries his best to convince her he's harmless. The girl introduces herself as Emma and explains that she is on her way to the Divine Mountain to sacrifice herself to a deity named Shin. Her village has been plagued by a fog that destroys crops, and the only way to lift it is by offering someone to Shin. Grateful for Makoto's help, Emma invites him to her house for dinner with her brothers. Over the meal, Makoto quickly realizes that magic is just a basic, everyday skill in this world. Intrigued, he asks Emma if she can teach him a thing or two. Emma starts with fire magic, which is supposed to be tricky, but to everyone's surprise, Makoto masters it on his first try. While this shocks Emma and her brothers, they still find it odd when they check Makoto's stats and see he's only a level 1. Undeterred, Emma continues to teach him, and Makoto eagerly learns more. The next day, determined to help Emma avoid her fate as a sacrifice, Makoto decides to take action. Drawing on his experience from the school archery club, he cleverly transforms his fire magic into a bow and arrow. He shoots a flaming arrow towards the entrance of the Divine Mountain, hoping to make a difference. But things go a little too well. He ends up blowing up the gate and accidentally injuring several men in the process. Not exactly the smooth rescue he was aiming for. The men Makoto accidentally injured were just pretending to use Shin's name to scare the orcs. But by attacking Shin's actual home, Makoto ends up summoning the real deal. A thick red fog rolls in, and out of it comes a massive dragon, ready to wreak havoc. Despite the mist making it hard to see, Makoto dodges every attack with ease, using a new ability that lets him sense the dragon's movements. He quickly counterattacks, surrounding the dragon with fireballs and hitting her repeatedly. which leaves the dragon both shocked and confused by how this guy, of all people, is so powerful. After a quick punch from Makoto knocks the dragon to the ground, things take a turn when Makoto lets his guard down. The dragon uses her magic to trap him in a mind-bending illusion where Makoto finds himself back in the archery club chatting with his crush Nikumi. She even confesses her love to him, but Makoto's no fool. He knows she's not the heartthrob type. Realizing it's all just a trick, he snaps out of the illusion using his newfound powers. It turns out Tsukiyomi gave him abilities that allow him to manipulate his surroundings, and he uses that same power to reinforce his fists and break free from the dragon's magic. Just as he's about to face the dragon again, she changes her tune. Impressed by Makoto's incredible power and intrigued by his memories of another world, she proposes a contract. She's curious to learn more about his world and offers to become his companion. Makoto hesitates at first, but eventually agrees. However, when they perform the contract ritual, Makoto's power completely overwhelms the dragon, and instead of forming a balanced partnership, he accidentally becomes her master. To top it off, she's transformed into a human. Apparently, when the contract is made, the weaker being takes the form of the stronger one, which explains her human transformation. But that's not all. She shows Makoto her demiplane, a mystical realm she controls. They enter through mist gates, and what used to be a dark, empty void is now vibrant, fertile paradise filled with lush fields and even fruits Makoto recognizes from Earth. Shin is in awe, realizing that Makoto's influence has completely reshaped the plane. To gauge its size, Makoto uses his Kai ability to scan the area, discovering just how massive it really is, though it hits a strange limit at the mysterious M-wall. Makoto realizes that since the demiplane is completely under Shin's control, the goddess probably can't meddle with his life there, making it a perfect spot to start his own city. But before getting carried away with his grand ideas, he remembers why he came to the mountain in the first place, to deal with the whole orc sacrifice situation. Turns out though, that Shin had nothing to do with it. It was all one big misunderstanding. Wanting to clear things up, Makoto heads back, only to run into Emma, who was trying to stop him from fighting Shin. She's understandably shocked when she finds out the Great Dragon has already teamed up with him. To celebrate Makoto's victory and clear up the confusion, the village throws a party and Emma is beyond grateful for saving them. The village elder, eager to repay him, is quickly outdone by Shin, who suggests the orcs move into her demi-plane. By the next day, they're all packed and ready to relocate. Makoto is a bit overwhelmed by the sudden shift, but the orcs are determined to repay his kindness and undying loyalty. Shin assures him the plane is safe and even reveals a tiny version of herself to act as the orc's protector. So, with that reassurance, Makoto agrees and construction on their new town begins. While the orcs are busy building, Makoto uses his free time to practice magic, while Shin amuses herself by binge-watching his memories of historical dramas. However, he quickly gets annoyed by her constant memory surfing. Sensing his frustration, Shin admits it's a bit inconvenient for him to just sit there while she digs through his mind. So she heads off to figure out how to create a TV to watch his memories on instead. While she's gone, Makoto stumbles upon some of the memories she left behind and starts missing his family. Since his parents were originally from this world, he wonders if he might be able to dig up some clues about their past here. Meanwhile, in a nearby forest, a dwarf is having the worst day ever, running for his life from a giant spider monster. Back in the demiplane, Makoto comes across some orcs struggling with a massive tree they need to cut down to build his fancy new house. The tree is too tough for their axes, so Makoto steps in and, using his Kai power, slices through the tree like it's butter and picks it up with ease. He even heals their wounds without using up any mana, feeling pretty pleased with the handy skill Tsukiyomi granted him. Unfortunately, he can't heal his own wounds, but he figures it's no big deal as long as he avoids getting hurt. That plan doesn't last long. Shin returns to the demiplane, bringing with her the injured dwarf after she ran into an old enemy. Things go south quickly when the scent of Makoto's blood lures the spider monster into the plane. But Shin decides to sit this one out and let Makoto handle it. The spider, cursed with endless hunger, attacks anything it can get its legs on. Makoto kicks off his battle with a fiery attack, slicing off one of its legs, but the spider regenerates almost instantly. Realizing this is going to be a long fight if it keeps healing, he goes all out, launching fire spears and eventually getting caught off guard and stabbed by the spider's leg. Enraged, he unleashes his full power, blasting away with no brakes and topping it off with an insanely powerful water arrow. Exhausted, Makoto passed out, but the spider, now a bit charmed by the intense fight, grabs him again. Instead of attacking though, it seems to have taken a liking to him. Shin even suggests that the spider becomes another one of Makoto's servants by forming a contract. By the time Makoto wakes up, he's greeted by yet another new girl by his side. Makoto, still recovering from his battle, is startled to learn that the new girl by his side is actually the giant spider he just fought, thanks to the contract made while he was out cold. She now has a human form. Makoto is beyond shocked. He didn't even know it was possible to make a contract without both sides agreeing. Shin casually walks in and Makoto confronts her about setting up the contract without his permission, but she just shrugs it off, saying it was better than having a giant spider trailing him everywhere. Fair point, but still. The dwarf, Bion, then introduces himself, grateful that Makoto got rid of the spider that had been terrorizing his village for ages. Bion asks if his people can move into Shin's demiplane, and Makoto, feeling generous, agrees right away. But before things get too cozy, Shin steps in with a few conditions. Bion's people need to supply them with weapons and acknowledge Makoto as the ruler of the land. Bion isn't quite sure about that deal until Shin casually hands him 2 dragon scales to sweeten the offer. Hard to say no to dragon scales, right? The next day, Makoto takes a stroll trying to figure out his parents' past and maybe track down a human settlement or two. But before he can get too far, Shin shows up, saying there's an urgent matter. Makoto, expecting something important, rushes back to the hut only to find out that the urgent matter is that Shin and the Spider Girl need new names. Naturally, Makoto is a little irritated about being pulled away for something so small, but they insist, so he gives Shin the name Tomoe, after the strongest female samurai he knows, and dubs the Spider Girl Mio. Fast forward to the next day, and there's a big gathering of all the citizens in the demiplane. Makoto is blown away by all the new species that have moved in. Tomoe and Mio proudly introduce themselves with their shiny new names, and then, to Makoto's surprise, they also announce that everyone should start calling him Master or Lord. Feeling a bit awkward about the title, Makoto settles on Young Master instead. Bion introduces Makoto to his village chief, ELD, who, after a quick glance, mentions that Makoto doesn't quite look like a typical human. Ouch! Then, Chief asks if Makoto was sent on some mission by the goddess. Makoto, still salty from the whole ugly comment the goddess threw his way, firmly states that he'd never take on a mission from her, especially after she roasted him and tossed him to the world's edge. Chief looks relieved to hear that. Turns out, his people aren't exactly on the best terms with the goddess either, so at least they can bond over mutual disdain for her. Tomoe steps in to proudly introduce her loyal followers, the Mist Lizards. Imagine lizards with cool air and water abilities who are totally devoted to her. Not to be outdone, Mio chimes in, introducing her own squad, the Ali. These folks were once constantly starving, but are now living their best life thanks to some of Makoto's blood and mana. After a quick speech to his new citizens, because that's what you do when you accidentally become the lord of a weird demiplane, Makoto heads out in search of a human village he had spotted earlier. On his way, he spots a human girl, but she takes one look at him, freaks out, and bolts like she's seen a ghost. Confused but undeterred, Makoto continues towards the village only to be greeted by an enthusiastic group of villagers holding weapons and looking like they're ready to skewer him. Awkward. Turns out the villagers are speaking in a language Makoto can't understand, which is odd since he was supposed to understand every language, right? But then it hits him. Thanks to that lovely goddess, he can speak every language except human. Of course. So naturally, they drive him away, probably assuming he's some kind of monster. Back at the hut, Makoto is sulking, trying to figure out why the humans were so quick to attack him. Was it because he's ugly? He starts to spiral a bit, but Tomoe jumps in to save the day, telling him it's not his looks. Apparently, his mana levels are off the charts, so much so that the villagers probably thought they were dealing with several demon kings at once. Emma suggests a simple solution. Just put a lid on it. By imagining his mana being contained, Makoto gives it a shot, but all he manages is a tiny decrease.
Makoto's on a mission and won't give up. Determined to learn the common language and control his overwhelming mana, he turns to a magic expert named Rugu, who gives him a ring designed to keep his mana in check. But as soon as he puts it on, bam! The ring can't handle his power and blows up. Undeterred, Makoto keeps practicing his common speech with Mio, but progress is slow until he finds a hack. He can magically write out translations for himself. Rugu brings him a tougher ring that can finally handle his mana, though it will turn red as a warning before it overloads again. Dressed as a wealthy merchant's son, Makoto heads back to the village, rocking a cloak and mask to avoid scaring people with his unique looks. And boy, everyone in the village is annoyingly good looking. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist is suspicious of him. So Mio and Tomoe spin a story about him being cursed and forced to wear the mask. The receptionist explains that adventurers start at rank E and everyone gasps when Tomoe and Mio's levels are measured. Tomoe's at 1,320, but Mio's at a whopping 1,500. Tomoe's jealous and demands a redo, while Makoto, embarrassed, finds out he's still stuck at level 1. When they get over the shock, they head to an inn, where the innkeeper's ridiculous room price is quickly bargained down with some intimidation from Tomoe. Later, Makoto and Mio go for a walk and bump into a distressed girl named Rinon, who claims her sister, Toa, has been missing for a month. Makoto senses something fishy about her being alone at night, but offers to help, though they spot a shady guy watching them. Meanwhile, Tomoe handles some wannabe robbers in their carriage, slicing them in half a little too enthusiastically. When she brings a surviving bandit back to the inn, Makoto's annoyed at her recklessness, only to discover the bandit's actually a woman. Rinon, overhearing their conversation, realizes she can't understand Makoto's language, which surprises him too. She thanks him for his kindness, even calling him her brother, and shows them a sketch of her missing sister, Toa, which surprises Makoto. Why? Because Toa looks just like a girl he knew back in his old world. Diving into the catapulted bandit's memories, Makoto realizes she's one of the thieves from the guild who's tied to Rinon and even Toa's disappearance. He orders Tomoe and Mio to go rescue Toa. Mio's a bit lazy about it, but seeing Makoto's intense look, she doesn't argue. Looks like the mystery's deepening and Makoto's ready to uncover it. Will Makoto stumble upon some massive world-shaking secrets? Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button because honestly, we can't resist more overpowered magic, sassy dragons, and spider girls with attitude.